What's up, Dragon Brood? I am still working hard trying to get you all these Kaldheim deck lists. And next up, we have Mono Green Aggro. And this isn't necessarily a food deck. This is just taking advantage of playing efficient creatures, big creatures, and attacking. Right? That's what you want to try to do. And again, this is going to be a fairly easy deck to build if you have most of the cards from the last part of Standard. You're only really going to have to add a few copies of this. So before we get into it, remember, please like this video, hit the subscribe button. That'll make sure you get notified as these decks roll out, because I'm putting out multiples a day. So if you want to stay on top of things going into the new Standard, this is the place. Anyway, let's go take a look at this Mono Green Aggro deck. Alright, conceptually, you're not really missing much here, so there's not a lot to go into. This is just play big creatures and get it done. So let's go ahead and start at the top here with Stonecoil Serpent. This is a card that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with where it stands in Standard right now. Right, there's still a fair amount of gold cards, and probably will continue to be. So it's really good for that, being protection from multicolor. It also has reach, which lets it block flyers, which is excellent, and it scales nicely on any turn. The downside is we have stuff like Eliminate, and more importantly, Bloodchief's Thirst that are everywhere and make this card susceptible, but you kind of just can't not play it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's the card of choice for that slot. We're also playing Chainweb Arachneer. And if I'm going to say anything, this is the card I'm least excited about in the list. It kind of only exists right now because stuff like Dimir Rogues exist, right? If that wasn't a thing, then I probably wouldn't play Chainweb Arachneer or Mill decks in general, because it does give you something to play out of your yard. It can reduce the number of cards in your graveyard. Like, it's actually doing a decent bit of work, and it does have a real upside. So I don't necessarily want to turn my nose up at it. However, if you have something better you want to play at 1 mana, feel free to go ahead. I would not even be surprised. But I do like this card where I think the format is going to start. However, I do believe by the time we get a month or so in, there's a chance I'd probably remove this card and play something else. Going down this, we have Primal Mites, a full set, because this is probably the best removal card this type of deck can play, especially when you're already playing big creatures. You have a few things that trample, you have stuff that gives trample. Like, this can really help you put the finishing blow on something, especially if your opponent already has to deal with like a 4/4, 5/5, a 6/6, and then you just pump up one of them. It really puts them in a bad situation, and you've killed off one of their creatures. It's a pretty versatile removal card too, because you can just use it as a big pump spell, or you can use it to remove a potential blocker. So either way, definitely the card you want to be playing in here. Then we're playing Nessian Hornbeetle. We're playing 4 of these. I actually, 2 formats ago, I guess, I was not so big on the Hornbeetle, but I kind of grew to love the card. And it's mostly because this is the type of lists that very easily could have 3, 4, 5 things that are 4 power plus, and then it makes it very easy to keep getting counters on this. Playing 2 Scavenging Ooze just because it's pretty versatile. Life gain, you can get another big creature. Like, not a lot of reason to play it, not play it, when you're looking for something to fill that 2 mana slot. We are playing a full set of Kazandu Mammoths. And I will say this for the Mammoth. I think the Mammoth is a solid card. I don't hate it. But I will say this, because we're also playing Nessian Hornbeetle, if you want to play Garruk's Harbinger in this spot, there's nothing wrong with that. I would even consider it to some extent, because if people are going to be playing, say, Orzhov Angels, that's going to be a deck with black removal spells. Still playing the previous Dimir Control, Dimir Rogues, both of those have black spot removal. So, like, it could make sense to still go ahead and play the Harbinger. And it's a 4 power. It's not like it's just chump change. It does have a 3 toughness, but that's fine for the upside that if you connect, you actually get to draw cards. So, this is probably the toughest spot for me. I think the Mammoth is the safe card. It's easy for people to play. You get a bigger creature when you play lands. The other side of that, though, like I said, is that you do get a really good upside from playing the Harbinger. So that's something I would consider there. But otherwise, moving on to the next card. Old Growth Troll. This is the first new card, really, going into this list. It's a 3 mana 4/4. It tramples on top of everything else. And if it dies, it comes back and enchants one of your lands. The cool part is it lets the land tap for 2 green. Well, it has a enchant of forest, but we're playing mostly forest. Taps for 2 green, or you can sacrifice the land and pay 1 and make another 4/4 troll token, which basically is another 4/4 troll because it also has trample. So that's actually pretty cool. This card is going to be really tough to deal with at times for your opponents. Also great that if you have the mana open, say your opponent sweeps the board, gets rid of all your stuff, well, this is going to come back enchanting a land during your opponent's end step. You're like, great, I'll just pay 1, tap, sacrifice this land, get a 4/4 anyway, keep attacking. Right? So it's actually pretty awesome what this card's able to do. Then we're playing 2 Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig. We have a bunch of things that are green. We can make Yorvo real big. That's kind of it in a nutshell. There's not a lot to say otherwise. We just get a real big Yorvo. Questing Beast, playing 3 of them. Could get away with 4. I just didn't want to get caught with extra legendary things I can't cast. Playing 1 Garruk Unleashed. Mostly because its trample ability is what we want most of the time. Not often do I think you'll be using it to make the beast, but it can work in a pinch, just making you a couple of 3/3s, maybe in the control matchups for some reason. But generally, I think you're going to be using the plus. Playing a couple of Vivien Monsters Advocate, probably my favorite Planeswalker to date. It just does so much. I mean, you have a deck packed with creatures, so that you play creatures off top of your library. You can minus to play some of your big creatures to get smaller creatures. And not only that, your big creatures that we're going to talk about here in a second aren't necessarily like small. You know, like you can play something like a Questing Beast and go get a Troll, or a Questing Beast and go get Yorvo, or Yorvo and go get Scavenging Ooze, right? That matters to remove stuff from the yard or gain some late life, however you want to look at it, right? There's options that Vivien gives you for sure. And then, of course, just making a 3/3 every turn is actually relevant. Then we're playing a couple copies of Elder Gargaroth. Just a big 6/6, does a bunch of things. The thing I like about it, particularly in this list, is that your other creatures are things your opponents really want to deal with. Like, they don't want Scavenging Ooze sitting around removing the yard. They don't want Nesting Hornbeetle sitting there getting big. Right? They don't necessarily want to deal with a Troll or Yorvo or a Questing Beast. So they've used a lot of their removal. Then you get to Gargaroth, and it's like, okay, well, now you're going to be drawing cards or just making 3/3s every turn or whatever, and just making their life hell. So really, really perfect fit in this particular list. And then we're playing 1 Battle Mammoth. This is more just to test it out more than anything else, because I think in a lot of scenarios, I'd rather have a Gargaroth. But if you do play this, your opponent kind of gets in a situation where they have to target this before something else. Otherwise, they're just going to give you a whole bunch of cards. It does foretell a little bit cheaper, but I'm not sure you're going to often use it for that. But maybe you get caught in a pinch. And it does have trample, and it's a 6 power. So, you know, it's an interesting card. I think Gargaroth is still better. So maybe if you already own Gargaroth, you just play a 3rd one. But there could be some upside to the Battle Mammoth. Getting into the lands here. And this is where it gets interesting. Since we're playing 1 color, though we do have things that cost triple green, I'm full aware, I think we can get away with playing Faceless Haven. Faceless Haven's a land, taps for colorless, but if you play 3 snow mana, you get a 4/3 that has Vigilance, and it's all creature types. Not sure how much the creature type things matter here, but having a 4/3 that you can attack with or block with, or maybe late in the game you can attack and block with, is super strong. It gives you a little bit of resistance against board sweepers. Even against stuff like, say, Doom Foretold, this is just a land, so you're not going to ever get stuck where you have to sacrifice it. Though, I mean, I guess you could turn it into a creature during your upkeep, sacrifice it, and keep your other bigger creatures if you wanted to for an extra turn, depending on the scenario. So that's a thing. We are playing a bunch of snow-covered forests, is how we're kind of compensating for this. So, yeah, it's actually overall a pretty interesting build for Mono Green. But just saying, you don't need a lot of cards here to really build this new version. So yeah, I think this is actually a pretty resilient version. You do get very sizable creatures pretty much up the curve. Like I said, the only things I would think about is, as the format progresses, if you want to change the Arachnir into something else, that would be relevant. However, though, I wouldn't say necessarily remove Arachnir, because now I'm thinking about it, the Azorius Flyers deck could actually be a thing, and there are some scenarios where even just pinging something for 1 could actually be relevant here. So maybe you do want to hold on to the Arachnir. And then the other thing is, do you replace the Mammoth with Harbingers? And that's the one I'm really on the fence about. If you're really worried about, maybe even go 2 and 2. say go 2 Harbinger, 2 Mammoth, maybe? I don't know. Something to think about, because I think there is an upside to playing the Harbinger, though, because you do have the faceless lands, you do actually get to have the Mammoths, which could give you another green if necessary. So I don't know. There's some balancing things we're going to have to figure out. Overall, though, the deck's really good. You don't need very many new cards. You're talking about 8 rares and 1 mythic, I believe. So only between 3 different cards. You probably already own many of these cards from previous formats. So yeah, all about it. And truthfully, the only thing maybe, like the trolls might be the only thing that go into specifically mono green only. But the other cards you might be able to find place for in other decks. That's not too bad either. But remember, if you haven't, please like this video, hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I put these out, because I'm going to be putting out multiple day up until the release of the set. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.